My girlfriend invited me to a restaurant to meet her friends. I didn't expect what she would tell me at the table. It was very offensive. More on that later. We've been together 3 years. Not a lifetime, but not nothing either. Long enough to think we knew each other. Long enough that I thought I could trust her to defend me when it mattered. I met her at a bookstore in Chapel Hill. She had this quiet charm, the kind that doesn't announce itself but stays with you. I was recently divorced, licking wounds I pretended didn't exist, and she was this soft landing. For a while, things were good, then they were fine, and lately I've been walking on eggshells I didn't even know were there. Little jokes that cut deeper than they should. A tone in her voice when she's with her friends that makes me feel like I'm someone she tolerates, not someone she chose. I chalked it up to stress, work, life. But there's always that moment, the moment when something shifts, and you can't see it. For me, it happened last Saturday. She invited me to this rooftop bar in Durham to meet her college friends, a group I'd heard about for years but never met. I was nervous, sure, but mostly excited. I'd even worn that stupid flannel shirt she likes, the one I think makes me look like a lumberjack who can't chop wood. I'd rehearsed jokes on the drive over. God help me. And then, she said it. Not in a fight. Not in a private moment of vulnerability. She said it casually, mid-laugh, holding a mimosa with one hand and her friend's attention with the other. She called me a freak. And not the playful kind. The word hung there for a second. Freak. Like someone had knocked the air out of my lungs. And for a moment, I wasn't even mad. I was just stunned. It wasn't just that she said it. It was the ease in her voice, the way she laughed right after, tossing her hair back like I was some kind of cartoon side character meant to make the main cast look better. Her friends cackled along, mimosas sloshing, eyes darting to me like they expected me to laugh too, to take it, to be cool about it. And I tried. God, I tried. I smiled that tight, fake smile people wear at funerals when someone makes a joke about the dead. I told myself maybe I misheard. Maybe she didn't mean it that way. Maybe the word meant something different to her. But no. The way she looked past me, not even at me, confirmed it. I was the punchline, and the joke had probably started long before tonight. Then one of her friends, the one with the oversized earrings and a laugh that sounded like a blender full of marbles, leaned in and said something like, "You're such a character. No wonder Elise keeps you around." And they all laughed again. Except me. I excused myself. Walked away from the table like a man carrying something broken inside him, careful not to let it spill out. I went to the edge of the rooftop, stared down at the city lights below, and realized I'd never felt more alone standing in a crowd. She came up behind me a minute later, heels clicking against the deck. Asked why I was being so sensitive. Told me it was just a joke, that I needed to lighten up. But what she didn't understand, what they never seemed to understand, is that you can only laugh off so many cuts before you start bleeding for real. And I was bleeding. Just not the kind anyone else could see. I should have left then. Just turned, walked to the elevator, and let the night end with the quiet dignity I had left. But I didn't. I stood there, staring out at the lights of Durham like they could somehow explain what just happened, like maybe if I focused hard enough, it wouldn't feel so personal. But it was personal. Because when the person who claims to love you calls you a freak, even as a joke, in front of people, that's not just a lapse in judgment. That's a crack in the foundation. She touched my arm then, soft like she was trying to reset the tone. Told me not to make a big deal out of it. Said I was overreacting, that her friends thought I was quirky and fun. Like I should be grateful to be the butt of their joke. And then, as if she hadn't said enough, she added that her friends actually really liked me, and I shouldn't ruin the vibe. That was the moment I laughed. Just once. Quiet, sharp, and full of something bitter I didn't even know I'd been carrying. I turned to her, not angry, just done. And I told her something I didn't even plan to say. That maybe the reason I felt like an outsider in my own relationship is because I was one. That I'd been trying so hard to fit into a space that was never made for me. And for the first time all night, she looked scared. Like she realized I wasn't just sulking, I was serious. She reached for me again. Her voice softened. She said she didn't mean it like that. That she was just nervous, trying to be funny. But you can't unring a bell. And some words don't get to be taken back, not when they land like that. So I stepped back. And I told her something even I didn't expect to say. I need space. She didn't expect that. Not from me, the quiet guy, the good sport, the one who lets things slide in the name of keeping the peace. But I wasn't that guy anymore. Not after tonight. Something had cracked open inside me, and it wasn't just about her or the stupid words she used. It was about all the times I'd swallowed my pride just to avoid conflict. She blinked at me, stunned. Asked what space even meant. Was I breaking up with her over one joke? And I almost answered, almost backpedaled, like I've done so many times in my life. But instead, I paused. Because that word, one, it kept ringing in my head. It wasn't just one. It was the way she rolled her eyes when I talked about my music. The way she'd smirk when I tried to dress nice and ask if I was trying too hard. The way I never felt fully invited into her world, just tolerated inside it. So I told her, no, this wasn't about one joke. It was about how I'd started to feel like a guest in my own relationship. Like I was only welcome as long as I played the role she wrote for me. And maybe that role had an expiration date. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then finally, she whispered that she was sorry, that she didn't mean to hurt me, that she'd take it back if she could. And maybe she meant it. But you know what's worse than someone hurting you on purpose? It's when they hurt you without even realizing it. Like it never occurred to them that it could hurt you. That's when you realize you were never really seen to begin with. I drove for almost an hour that night, nowhere in particular, just moving. I rolled the windows down even though the air was sharp and cold, like I needed to feel something real on my skin. The roads outside Durham blurred into long, empty stretches of dark, and I kept thinking about how quiet it was, not just outside, but inside me. A kind of silence that comes after a scream no one hears. It wasn't just Elise's words that shook me. It was the realization that I had let them happen. That I had built a relationship where being humiliated in front of her friends felt like something I was supposed to tolerate. Like that was the price of admission. And once you start paying that price, you don't even realize how much you've spent until you've got nothing left in the account. I thought about the first time I noticed something was off, probably a year ago. We were at her friend's baby shower, and Elise told a story about how I can't use chopsticks without turning it into a full-blown disaster. Everyone laughed, and I laughed too, because what else was I supposed to do? But when she leaned in later and said she only told it because it made her seem more relatable, something in me wilted. That's when I started noticing it. The small digs. The sideways compliments. The way I'd become her lovable clown, harmless, quirky, easy to dismiss. But I wasn't always like this. There was a time I used to take up space, not in a loud way, just in a way that said I belong here. I used to have opinions, not just preferences. I used to say no when something didn't sit right. Somewhere along the way, I gave that up. Smoothed my edges to keep the peace, made myself smaller so she could shine brighter. I didn't even notice it was happening. Until tonight. When I finally got home, I didn't go to bed. I sat on the couch with the lights off, shoes still on, staring at the faint reflection of myself in the black TV screen. And I didn't like what I saw. Not because of how I looked, but because of how long I'd stayed with someone who made me feel like less. She called that night. Twice. I let both go to voicemail. Then she sent a text. Just one word. Please. And it hit me how different that word feels when it comes too late. The next morning, I didn't check my phone. Not at first. I made coffee. Stared out the window at the frost on my neighbor's car. Let the quiet hang there like an old coat I didn't feel like taking off. I felt heavy. Not in a tragic, falling apart kind of way, more like something inside had finally settled, like silt at the bottom of a river that had been stirred for too long. Around 9 a.m., I finally looked at my phone. 2 missed calls. A handful of texts. Can we talk? I didn't mean it. I feel awful. Please don't shut me out. I stared at them, but I didn't reply. Not yet. I didn't even know what I'd say. I wasn't angry, not in the way she probably thought I was. No, what I felt was closer to grief. Like I'd finally accepted that something I loved was gone, even if it was still standing in front of me asking for another chance. By noon, she was knocking on my door. I didn't answer. She waited. I heard the shuffle of her feet on the porch, the way she shifted her weight nervously like she did when she was about to say something uncomfortable. She called my name through the door, soft at first, then louder. I just sat on the couch, still as stone, heart thudding quietly in my chest. She stayed for 5 minutes, maybe 6. Then I heard her car start and drive away. That was the hardest part, knowing she'd come, knowing she was sorry, and still not being ready to let her in. But that's the thing about hurt. Sometimes the wound isn't the moment someone breaks your heart. It's when they come back and expect it to be whole again just because they're ready. I sat there most of the afternoon, not moving, not speaking, just thinking. And what I thought about most was me. When was the last time I asked myself what I needed in a relationship? When was the last time I stood up for myself without apologizing afterward? Because I realized something sitting there in the quiet, I hadn't just been mad at Elise. I'd been mad at me too. For all the times I let myself be the joke. For laughing when it wasn't funny. For waiting to be chosen in a place where I was already supposed to belong. The next day, I caved. Not all the way, just enough to open the door when she knocked again. She was standing there in a hoodie, no makeup, hair tied back, clutching a coffee tray like it was an apology with a lid on it. She didn't speak right away. Just looked at me like someone staring through a window at a house they used to live in. I stepped aside. She walked in slow, like the room might bite her. I didn't offer a hug. She didn't try. We sat at opposite ends of the couch, coffee cups untouched between us. Then she started talking. Not with excuses. Not even with defenses. Just raw words, tumbling out like she'd been rehearsing them in the dark. She said she'd made a mistake. That the joke, that whole night, had been her trying to be someone she wasn't. That when she's around her old friends, she becomes this version of herself that's shinier, wittier, colder. That I didn't deserve to be part of that act. She said she thought we were solid. That she didn't realize how far apart we'd gotten until she saw my face after she said it, that one word. And she knew instantly she'd crossed something you don't come back from. And then she said something that surprised me. She said, "You were never the freak." I was. I just hid it better. That's when I saw it, the fear. Not fear of losing me. Fear of having to face who she'd become. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to reach across the couch, take her hand, pull her back into the safety we used to share. Another part, the quieter, wiser one, told me that safety had already collapsed. And you can't rebuild on ground that's still shaking. So I told her I believed she was sorry. But I didn't say I forgave her. Not yet. Because forgiveness, I've learned, isn't a gift you hand out to make things okay again. It's a doorway. And sometimes the person on the other side has to prove they're willing to walk through it. The days that followed were strange. Not explosive. Not dramatic. Just quiet in a way that felt unnatural, like the house itself was waiting to see what I'd do next. She didn't stay that night. She left the coffee and walked out like someone leaving a confession at the foot of an altar. And I just let her. I needed the space. Not the kind you ask for in a fight just to make someone feel bad, real space. Breathing room. A pause long enough to figure out if the trust had any pulse left. And in that silence, something strange happened. I started remembering who I was before her. Not just vaguely. Specifically. I remembered waking up early on Sundays and driving out to the flea market on the edge of town just because I liked looking at old things. Broken clocks, scratched records, coffee mugs with someone else's name on them. I remembered the first time I cried at a movie and didn't hide it. I remembered singing in the car without worrying how stupid I looked at a red light. I'd let so much of that version of me get buried under compromise. Under jokes I didn't laugh at. Under moments I didn't speak up because I didn't want to make her uncomfortable. And now here I was. Alone. But more myself than I'd felt in months. She texted again on day 3. "Can I come by just to talk?" I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just said, "Not today." Because I meant it. I didn't want to talk until I had something to say. That was the shift, the quiet war between needing to heal and not wanting to hurt her. Between wanting closure and needing clarity. And somewhere in that gray space, I started rebuilding the parts of me I hadn't visited in years. I pulled out my old keyboard, the one gathering dust in the closet. I started writing again, just thoughts, nothing polished. I even went for a walk around the lake, the same one we used to go to together, back when things were simple, or at least felt like it. And you know what? I didn't miss her on that walk. Not in the way I feared I would. I missed how I used to feel when I was with her. That's when I realized there's a difference between loving someone and missing who you thought they were. A week went by. 7 full days of no visits, no long calls, no pressure. Just that slow, quiet ticking of time stretching between us like a thread, still there, but fragile. I think she knew not to push. Or maybe she was giving me space out of guilt. Either way, I finally had the room to breathe. And once you start breathing again, you notice how long you've been holding your breath. I spent that week reclaiming things. My mornings. My music. My voice. I said no to things I didn't want to do. I cooked for myself, not to impress or accommodate, but because I liked the smell of garlic on my hands and the way a meal made from scratch felt like self-respect on a plate. I even cleaned the guest room, the one Elise always said was wasted space. I dusted the windowsills, moved the old chair by the window, and just sat there one evening as the sun set over the trees. I hadn't realized how good stillness could feel. Then Friday came. And with it, a knock. She didn't text first this time. Just showed up. I almost didn't open the door, but curiosity got the better of me. She looked different. Tired, yes. But not just from lack of sleep. Tired in the way people look when they've been alone with their thoughts too long. She asked if we could walk. Just talk. No fixing. No deciding. Just air. So we walked. Down the same block we used to take after dinner. Except this time, We didn't hold hands. She told me she'd started seeing a therapist. Said it was long overdue. That for most of her life, she'd cope by being the funniest one in the room, the one who laughs first, loudest, so no one sees how shaky her voice is underneath. I listened. I didn't interrupt. Then she asked something I didn't expect. Did you ever really feel like I saw you? And the truth, the hard, aching truth, came out so easily I didn't even flinch. No. And then, softer, but I wanted to. That's when her eyes dropped. That's when I saw it, the truth hitting her, the way it hits all of us eventually. It's not enough to love someone. You have to recognize them too. We kept walking after that. Not because we had more to say, we didn't, not really, but because movement gave us something to do with all the emotions that had no place to land. I could feel her beside me, close but not touching, like she wanted to reach for my hand, but wasn't sure if it would still be there. Truth is, I wasn't sure either. That night was the first time I let myself wonder, could we really come back from this? Not just smooth it over, not just patch up the surface and pretend it never cracked, but actually rebuild something stronger, more honest? Or was it already too late? Back at my house, we stood in the doorway like strangers who used to know each other. She asked if she should go. I nodded, not out of anger, just certainty. She looked at me like she wanted to say something else, but she didn't. She turned, walked down the steps, and disappeared into the night. And I stood there for a long time. Because what do you do when someone you loved, maybe still love, finally sees you, and it's only after they've hurt you? That night, I didn't sleep. I replayed everything, not just the fight, not just the joke, but the slow erosion that came before it. The way I'd been molding myself for years into something easier to love, quieter to keep around. And then I asked myself the hardest question of all. If she had never said that word, freak, would I still be pretending everything was fine? The answer came quicker than I expected. Yes, I would have. And that broke me more than anything she ever said. Because I realized the real betrayal wasn't hers, it was mine. I betrayed myself by staying silent, by shrinking, by accepting less than I needed because I was afraid of being alone. Now I had to make a choice. Not between staying or leaving. Between healing or hiding. Healing sounds like a beautiful word until you actually try to do it. It's not clean or pretty. It doesn't feel like growth at first. It feels like breaking, again and again, just slower. But I chose it anyway. Not for her. Not to prove anything. For me. The next morning, I stood in the bathroom staring at my reflection, trying to find the version of myself that existed before I started dimming my light to make other people more comfortable. And I said it out loud, not for drama, not for theatrics, but because I needed to hear it. I'm not the joke. That day, I didn't answer her texts. I didn't check her social media. I didn't revisit our messages or replay old voice notes. I went to the lake again. I bought myself a sandwich from that little place near the record shop where we used to go. And I sat in the sun like I used to, alone, but not lonely. Later that week, I wrote her a letter. Not to win her back. Not to end things either. Just a truth she deserved to hear from me directly. I told her I'd forgiven her. Not because what she did was okay, but because I didn't want to carry it anymore. I told her I didn't know what the future held. That I was open to rebuilding, but only if we were both doing it as equals, not performer and audience. Not savior and sidekick. I told her the truth. That I still loved her. But I loved myself more now. And that's what had changed. She didn't write back right away. And that was okay. Because healing isn't about guarantees. It's about choosing yourself, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I still don't know what we'll become. Maybe friends. Maybe nothing. Maybe, someday, something new. But I do know this. I will never again sit at a table where the only way to be included is to laugh at my own expense.